I still have on my reflective vest because I just got through walking my dog not long ago. He might occasionally jump up in my lap here, want something from me. But I want to remind us that probably most of us do invest some time in our physical health, whether that would be in exercise or the way we eat, what we eat, the amount of rest we get, medication we take, etc., etc. But there are a lot of reasons that many of us don't invest as much in relational health, spending intentional time with others to build relationships. And so, scarry stories can help with that. Not scary stories. I do occasionally like a scary story of certain types. But a scary story tells us there's goodness in scattering, right? That there's something greater out there than us and we need to create some distance. But scarry stories tell us there's goodness in gathering, that there's something great that happens when we come together, especially in certain types of relational ways of being with each other. So, a couple things to say about scarry stories. One, in order to tell a good scarry story, you need to say what the goodness of that gathering is or was that you miss, and to tell a level of detail that helps people to be there. I'll give you an example. I've got a scar right here on my finger that's about 45 years old. It might be closer to 50 years old. I'm almost 60. And it reminds me of the patience and the wisdom and commitment of my dad. My dad and I had just come back from fishing. He did most of the fishing. He caught all the fish. I think I was sitting there with him while he was fishing. And he was cleaning the fish. And if you have ever cleaned your own fish with a knife, you know those knives are very, very sharp. They're unusually sharp. And he had a fillet knife, and it had a little wooden handle, a very, very thin blade, just weighed a few ounces. It was flimsy. The handle was strong, but the blade was flimsy. And Dad has his back turned to me. I was 8, 9, 10 years old, something like that. And he's cleaning the fish at a different part in the process. He's not yet using the fillet knife where he separates the meat of the fish from the bones and the scales and stuff. He's scaling the fish with a different type of knife. So the fillet knife is sitting there by itself. And he sees me looking at it. And he knows boys are curious, right? So he says, don't mess with that. He says, it's very, very sharp and it will cut you. So me being a 10-year-old boy, knowing that I know better than my dad, picked up the fillet knife, and just with the weight of the blade, which was, I don't know, a fraction of an ounce, I just drew it across my finger like that, top of my finger, right here. I don't know if you can see the scar. And it laid me open. It didn't go deep, thankfully. I cut ligaments and tendons and things there. And he probably heard me go or something. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, I tried to tell you to keep you safe. And I don't remember what happened after that. I was very embarrassed. I'm sure he took care of me by a paper towel with his fish scale covered hands, or told me to go in and get a Band-Aid or something. I don't remember, but I do remember he didn't yell at me. He didn't lecture me. He didn't tell me to take off and get out of here. We took care of it, and I continued to sit there. And reflecting back on that, I still have that scar 50 years later, and reminds me of how patient and wise my dad was. And I didn't listen to him at the time, but every time I look at it now, my dad died about almost 10 months ago now. It reminds me of the goodness of gentleness and patience and wisdom that we have to share with others, and when they don't listen to us, that we gain scars. And so I would like to be with people who are gentle and wise so that they can spare me from all types of scars. I'd like to give those gifts of wisdom and patience and commitment to others to spare them of scars. And when we spend time with others, whether they've been scarred or we might receive something from them to spare us of a scar, something great happens. Love is given, love is received from the sparing of a scar or the sharing of a scar. So that's a scarry story. Halloween's coming up. Many people will share scary stories, but I'd like to encourage you to share scarry stories. Gather in relationship, build each other up, encourage each other, even from your wounds, because great things can happen there too.